Welcome, everybody. Today is the 98th episode of Let's Do Lunch. And I'm really pleased that we have the Rights Tech Roundtable back this week. And I'll be introducing our host, Paul Sweeting, in just a moment. But first, a reminder, we have our chat open. Please introduce yourselves. And when you do so, change the drop down to panelists and attendees from just panelists so that everyone can see your posts. Also, if you have questions for the panel today, please put them in the Q&A, which is just to the left of the chat, so that they go directly to our panelists and they can see them. Also, we will have a poll about midway through the show today, so look forward to that. We hope everyone will participate. It's great to get your input during the show. Okay, as I mentioned, today is our Rights Tech Roundtable. And as always, welcome our host, Paul Sweeting from Concurrent Media and the Rights Tech Project. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Ned. Hello, everyone. It's good to be back. I apologize for flaking out on the last two sessions. 2 weeks ago, Washington, D.C., where I'm based, was hit with some tremendous storms, which caused widespread flooding, including in my house, which caused me to lose power right before we were supposed to go on. So my apologies for that. Before we get to our panel today, couple of headlines of note recently. First of all, there's been a fair amount of action around DMCA reform here in the U.S. Over the past week. There was a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on possible reforms to Section 1201. That's the anti-circumvention provisions of the law, which haven't gotten as much attention lately as some other parts of the law, but that was the subject of a hearing that's part of an ongoing DMCA review process being spearheaded there by the chair of the IP subcommittee in the Senate, Tom Tillis, who at the moment is trailing his opponent in the polls. So if he were to lose, it's not 100% clear what would happen with that initiative, but presumably it would be taken up by whoever would become chairman of that subcommittee, were he not to return. There's a series of webinars hosted by the U.S. Copyright Office on Section 512 of the DMCA. This is an extension of the report that they put out earlier this year on suggesting some possible changes to the safe harbors in Section 512, and those have been very interesting. There were two this week. There's one more next week, I understand. And if you go to the Copyright Office website on the Section 512 resources page, they're going to be posting the recordings of those webinars. They're not there yet, but they're promising to post them there, and I highly recommend them. The other big news just broke today. CSAC has officially rolled out their new ISWC system. That's the International Standards Work Codes system, something they've been working on for the past 2 years. It includes some significant changes to how ISWCs are going to be assigned. They're going to be assigned centrally by CSAC itself now, in an effort to avoid any duplication or confusion between among the, up till now, they've been assigned by individual country registers, and that occasionally led to conflicts in numbers assigned. That will all happen centrally now. They'll also be more or less instantaneous. There won't be the as involved a registration process, so works will be able to go into commerce with an ISWC almost immediately. So The management of data actually is the subject of today's panel. We have two people I've been wanting to talk to for a while, and I'd like to invite Pieter and Ken to join us now. There they are. Pieter van Rijn is the CEO of FUGA, which is an industry-leading technology and services company for international rights owners. Pieter became CEO there in 2004 and has basically been the driving force behind FUGA's growth. It was more or less still a startup when he got there, and he has led its expansion in the services that it now provides and in the territories that it operates in, and of course in the acquisition of FUGA by Downtown back in, I believe it was January or February of this year. Before getting into the music business, Pieter was a consultant, a management consultant at Three Rivers Media Consultancy, and he's been involved in a number of corporate strategy initiatives, restructurings, M&A, and he was formerly in the actually in the TV industry as head of M&A at the global TV production company Endemol. He is also a board member of Merlin, the global music rights agency representing independent musicians or independent music companies. Ken Umezaki is the co-founder and CEO of Verifi Media, which is a company focused on modernizing how media data is shared and managed. It is an outgrowth of a company that some people may remember called Dot Blockchain Media. He is also an independent investor and advisor to music tech startups through his other company, Digital Dharma. And he actually had an extensive career before getting into music in financial services as a trader, asset manager, senior management figure within the financial industry. So he knows the importance of accurate and efficient collection and management of data. So welcome to you both. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Excited
Thank
to.
you.
So let me start with Pieter. I gave a very brief outline of what FUGA has been up to lately, but you guys have been up to a lot. There have been a number of significant hires that you've made recently. You've expanded into new territories. You've added additional services. Tell us, where FUGA came from and where you're trying to get it to go.
Thanks, and thanks for inviting me, and hello to everyone. So I actually started at FUGA since 2014, and at that time the company already existed for quite a while, actually, 2006, and you could say it had a pretty long startup period. When I joined, there was actually one developer because they had just gone through a restructuring at the time, and then there were two sort of hires, two 21-year-olds, two brothers who were working on some kind of royalty accounting system. The other one developer was sort of a founding developer, and he was working on a distribution technology. And since then, a lot has changed, I would say. We still, I think, own up to our mission to create a more equitable music industry for independent businesses. And that has been driving us, actually, since inception. But we do it now at scale. By now, we have around 120 people who work for the company, and we serve we do, so we are essentially the B2B technology and services provider in distribution for around 600 businesses, labels, distributors, etc., across 50 countries. And we are early this year, we were acquired by a company called Downtown, which is a publisher by trade, but they had done some recent acquisitions in the recording rights space, which is the space that we are active in. And
they're sort of into everything now, Downtown.
They are essentially indeed working across rights, and we'll probably talk about that more in this session. But that was one of the attractive elements of this, because as FUGA, we've always tried to be active in across rights and move from recording to neighboring rights to publishing rights when it comes to registration, delivery, and royalty accounting. So now we can do that together with our partner. So just roughly, that is where we are now.
Okay, so to what extent has the acquisition actually accelerated your plans or fulfilled your plans? I mean, how essential was that to?
I think we are now 9 months in, so it's probably a bit early to really assess at this point. But one thing that I would say is we did find that because of our growth in the recording industry as a distributor, and that takes up so much focus, and as many people probably and listeners know, focus is very important for any company, and when you're growing fast, that is required. And it almost felt like our idea to get into sort of, like I said, the management of other rights components seemed to be sort of a stretch. So I guess in that sense, now we have actually already established a few wins where we are now integrating our neighboring rights businesses, and hopefully are able to, in the course of next year, have a joint neighboring rights offering, for instance. So that has actually accelerated those plans. And I think also in terms of our global offering in our current distribution space, obviously with a larger company and our combined offices network, we can service way better locally. We already had offices in various countries in the US, and of course headquartered in Amsterdam and in London and in Italy and in Seoul. But now we have, we can add a number of cities to that, which is important in the international distribution branch.
Great. So one of your more significant recent moves is a move to integrate your services with Verifi, so that your clients will be able to take advantage of the rights registry platform that Verifi has built, and Verifi users will have access to the services of FUGA. So before we get in too deep into how that integration will actually work, why don't I invite Ken to tell us a bit about Verifi. It's, I've known Ken and been following his work for a number of years now, and Verifi is a product years in the making, I think it's fair to say. And this is a big step for Verifi and for Ken personally. And so I wanted to give him a chance to share with folks, where Verifi is, what it does, and how it does it.
Sure. So if it's okay, we'll share a few slides. It won't take long, because I think it's the easiest way. I do better with the props, as I call it. And then we'll show a overview video of the FUGA service as well at the end, if that works for everybody. That be all right? Yeah.
Great.
Cool. So hopefully you can see this. Yeah.
Can everyone see the screen? See Ken's screen? I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. So as Paul's pointed out, we're now in our 5th year. We have been around for a while. And if I had to summarize in simple terms, what we're trying to do from a technology solution perspective is answer the question in a systematic way, who owns the rights to the song? And as we all know on this call, it's actually a very complicated answer. It involves multiple parties. It involves multiple regions. It involves multiple stakeholders.
Hold on one second, Ken. I see in the chat that some people are saying they're not able to see the screen. Laura, are you are not able to see the slides? Others say they can see it.
Okay. Huh.
Well, no, most people seem to be seeing it fine. So let's plow ahead, Ken.
Okay,
My apologies.
No worries. So, and create a systematic technology-based solution to answer that question. So at a simplified level, that's what it is. This is the value chain of music, as we all know, on the recorded side, labels, publishers, PROs, DSPs, and distributors. We have clients, in sort of enterprise level clients in all of those sectors working with us today. So we're very proud of that. We think we're the furthest along in terms of a blockchain anchored solution for rights data sharing, for lack of a better term. You know, the reason why this makes sense is in terms of rethinking how we manage data in the music world. Really on the right-hand side is kind of the summary of that. We have much, more data to manage and more people involved per recording or per composition than ever before. And it's growing at 40,000 tracks a day, if you believe Spotify. So there's increasing data complexity. It definitely amplifies the existing frictions, not just within, not just across the industry in terms of communicating the proper data, whether that's under monetizable tracks or lawsuits that have come up on the songwriter side, or just the sheer volume of data that, for example, a large PRO may need to parse through. But also within an organization in terms of the efficiencies, as these organizations have gotten larger on the B2B side, the need to communicate good data, current data, is magnified. And we believe the problem isn't going away. The industry is growing again in revenue terms, as well as the streaming side of things continuing to grow at a very rapid rate. So we do know that becoming more data literate and figuring out some of these solutions the need for that is amplified, if you will. So how does Verifi work? Well, we are first and foremost at the data level, what we call a data engine. We bundle disparate sets of data. So the audio file, recording data, creator information, works data, et cetera. And we also have built a stack, if you will, that keeps the data synchronized for changes over time, which I think is the important piece. We use the blockchain to help with tracking and communicating those changes. The chain is actually really good at these two functions. We are not a chain-only solution, but it definitely is a great way to communicate in an agnostic way, if you will. And we do use machine learning techniques through our partner, Ray, which is a subsidiary of Exactuals, because there's a lot of data out there. As we know, there's over 200 million recordings, over 100 million commercially relevant works in the sort of universe, if you will. And we think that machines can help be a great first filter to make sure the data not only is normalized going in, but stays normalized over time. If you take this approach, rights data continues to improve and stays updated over time. You put on top of that, if you will, what I call a data sharing surface, where all the participants can get the benefit of this sort of data engine and this change management engine. And you can actually get the benefits of communicating broadly to multiple organizations those changes. So we think of this as what we call the shared data approach. And when you do that, you can reimagine, if you will, many of the things that organizations as well as creators face every day in the digital world, whether it's multiple data formats that you need to kind of navigate through, making sure the data is clean, communicating that to multiple people, managing your catalog and supply chain in this kind of environment, as well as certain things that happen all the time, like catalog transfer. So those are the kinds of things that our services enable and what we've been working with our clients. FUGA is the first live, if you will, service that we've actually launched, if you will. And so here's the video, if you will, that we're using as an initial intro to what it is. So this will give you a feel for what we're doing with FUGA.
Verifi Media has launched its first product for music industry distributors in partnership with leading global B2B music services company FUGA. The new service integrates Verifi's blockchain-backed metadata and rights tracking solution with FUGA systems, which empowers FUGA clients to take control of a promising blockchain-based future at the point of distribution. Verifi works by creating individual records and histories for each asset, product, connected participant, and agreement, which allows Verifi to track metadata and ownership changes in each record over the course of its lifetime. Our powerful data matching system can meaningfully connect information about these records. For example, a recording can be linked to its underlying work, to a product where it is used, and to the songwriters, artists, owners, and other contributors who created or distribute that work. On the private side of our dataset, the contracts link creators to labels and publishers to distributors, and so on through the supply chain. If one record changes, connected records are dynamically updated because of the way Verifi separately stores and nests data, meaning users no longer need to painstakingly update, cleanse, or redeliver data manually. When FUGA users send their data to Verifi, we capture these individual records, match new records to existing records where data is provided, and register new records or any amendments in our immutable blockchain-enabled history. We also make the public data fields available on our public website so anyone can search to find the most current public data on a client's asset or product. This data is served via API, so DSPs who wish to pull information from our registry can do so extremely easily. All they need is the verified unique ID for each product and asset. And the good news is, FUGA can make that available for DSPs directly in their product and asset deliveries. At scale, the Verifi system will allow all the parties in the music industry to read directly from our data feed via API, and based on their permission levels, to exchange data with other parties right at the asset level, making catalog management much more efficient for everyone involved. FUGA clients who choose to join Verifi's powerful decentralized data network will benefit from a future of unprecedented connectivity and dynamic data tracking, leading to cleaner, better data faster than ever before. To register your interest in participating, please contact your FUGA representative today or contact us at support@Verifi Media to learn more.
So that's the overview. Sorry for the slight advertising nature of that video. Those are the slides. Hopefully that was helpful for the group.
You'll be getting the bill for the advertising after the.
Excellent. I'm fully prepared to pay, as long as you take Ether or Bitcoin. Or
So you did. You used the B word in that presentation, a word that's sort of fallen out of favor in some quarters. Although you did change the name of the company to not have that the B word front and center, but this seems like actually an actually useful use case, as it were, of blockchain technology. Whereas not that could not be said of some of the other proposals that have been put forth for using blockchain. So very interesting. But it seems as if its value is going to be kind of directly proportional to how many people and how many different entities and sectors of the business buy into it. Can you talk at all about your conversations, without giving away proprietary information, obviously, unless you care to, you know, how those conversations are going, and you know, sort of what is your strategy for getting buy-in from the sectors you'll need to get buy-in from?
Sure, happy to do that. Just on the first part, we definitely, you know, we obviously use the chain for what we think is the right purposes, as opposed to it being a crypto or holistic solution that everything's on the chain. We actually don't do that. It is a great way to ensure agnosticity around communication of changes and registration of changes to data. And that's what we use it for. It's often classified, for those of you on the call, as an enterprise blockchain solution, as opposed to call it, on the contrast, like a crypto use case. So, I think it's important to understand that, anytime you have lots of people in the value chain and there's a need to share data in a constructive way, the so-called enterprise approach does make sense in some cases. And we obviously believe that music data, rights data, is a very, very, almost a perfect use case for that. So, and those of you who want to hang out and talk about the chain and how we use it, I'd be more than happy to do that separately. In terms of our strategy around sort of adoption, if you will, a couple thoughts there. First of all, we've deliberately taken sort of the enterprise route in terms of clients that we're actually pitching to and that we've engaged in. So we are very proud, like I said earlier, of the fact that we are, I believe, the only modernized rights, sort of blockchain-based rights solution that is working with, each of the verticals within the recorded music space already. In a number of cases, we have more than one. So we have a number of labels. We're currently working with one publisher. We have 2 PROs, CMOs, collection societies, whatever the right term is, depending on where you are. A distributor, which we should talk about with Pieter, because that's our primary distributor, as well as a DSP. And I think in all those cases, the organizations know sort of intuitively, if not explicitly, that this idea of sharing data to get better data out of it, you have to buy into that almost as the first thing. And then the secondary thing is, can't we actually move rights data faster, right? It's very manual. I sometimes call it analog in terms of many of our business practices within music. And yet the consumption and creation is happening at the speed of digital. And so we have to connect those two. I think for organizations who understand those two basic principles, there's definitely, we think we can add a lot of value. Lastly, we get asked a lot whether or not we need to have everybody involved. Is this a new standard? All that stuff. It is not. This is a data management service. We do obviously need some kind of critical mass, but philosophically, we don't believe we need to have everybody to participate. Almost ironically, because rights data is inherently multi-party in nature, right?
Certainly in music.
Yeah, right. Almost just inherently it is, right? Two participants, 6
copyrights, and
and it goes all over the world in all these different ways. You can get actually a pretty large picture of what's going on without everybody there. And certainly, as we mentioned earlier, the fact that we have a machine learning based, although not authoritative, best guess on what the best data set is through Ray, Exactuals Ray, which has, 70 million recordings and 20 million plus matches at this point across ISRC, WC. That's a pretty good start, right? In a world where 60 million to 70 million tracks are available on Spotify. So I feel like we actually have the data. We have a different approach. Critical mass is essential, of course, to get the authoritative people involved. And my guess is if we get, 5 to 6 more enterprise clients over the next year, we're going to be in business, and they'll see the relative advantages of being involved in us.
So Pieter, what was the buy-in for FUGA? What attracted you to this? What are you hoping that either FUGA or FUGA's clients will get out of this?
So part of it had to do with, let's say, our day-to-day business and client propositions. And part of it has to do with, I guess, sort of a more higher ideal. And I just saw a comment coming in about the sort of the transparency across rights and creating an ecosystem where everyone has access to the rights they own and get equal pay. But the first one was is very current, because for our clients, we are seeing the FUGA platform is seen as a point of truth. So our clients, they manage their master and recording rights mainly, although you can have associated rights to it as well in our platform. And they know that the standard of of that rights maintenance is very high, and therefore they can always monetize on it. So that point of truth is a critical factor why our clients use us. And at the same time, one of our missions is to be at the forefront of digital supply chain. So we want to deliver. We just not want to maintain the correct data for our clients, but we also want to deliver it in the right way. So that digital supply chain, let's say, goal that we have is very important. And when the B word came up, this immediately rose our attention because it got our attention because, well, first of all, it has something disruptive by nature for our type of business. Because you could say that there is a way that we organize data on behalf of our clients, and you could almost say that we would benefit from the fact that data is not in order. So any technology that could be disruptive in that business is technology we would want to adopt. That's the business part of it. But then there is the client demand about, for instance, labels who are our clients who really wanted to understand and wanted to have access as well to publishing data so they could make sure to pay out some of their, let's say, copyright rights holders. And especially in the independent music business, you see lots of businesses who are active in both recording and then they have a publisher on the side. So they just want to have one place where they can maintain all of that data. So that's a request that we got. And the third reason was, again, that more idealistic reason is let's not have gatekeepers in the industry, but let's make sure that we have sort of this bottom-up service where perhaps through blockchain there's a dynamic way of tracking data when it changes hands. And frankly, this could solve a wider problem in the industry, and that is that we are living in an industry which is siloed. If a DSP pays out recording, let's say the recording side of a stream, it goes, let's say, to a party like FUGA, who then pays it through to rights holders. But of course, when it's publishing, it either goes to a publisher or through a PRO, through a rights owner. And the point of truth, there's not these various siloed businesses don't have the same point of truth. So reconciliation after the stream took place is always very difficult, and that creates a lot of intransparency, and it creates inefficiency, and ultimately, creates the fact that not all rights holders get paid in the right way. So this was all sort of a combined reason for us to join.
In fact, one of the trends we've been talking about here a lot at Rights Tech is the M&A activity that's going on around publishing catalogs and publishing rights, and things are changing hands at a great and accelerating speed, and there's you see reports of a lot of money on the sidelines preparing to come in to this business, chasing primarily publishing rights catalogs. So the problem of communicating those changes out to the industry and the appropriate parties who need it is getting harder, not in a sense, not easier.
We're seeing that for sure in terms of sort of interest. I think there's both the traditional funding of, say, publishing, catalog, sometimes comes from private equity, for example, so those are kind of external financial investors. But the broader thing we're seeing is now everything's an evergreen annuity, right? Master recording rights are, as well as publishing. So, and you've seen even one of the people participating here today ask a question about hypnosis, for example. You've got these organizations who are not traditionally part of the value chain now, starting to acquire these things directly, not indirectly, like a private equity firm through a publisher and so on. That not only is it difficult for them to acquire because they don't know who owns what, right? But keeping track of those for an organization that isn't normally involved in rights is a huge challenge internally for these organizations as well. And I do
a lot of it is a lot of that money is sort of traditional investor capital.
Yeah, I know a bit about that from my background.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
This could certainly help.
They're kind of more interested in what the return on that capital is going to be, not on even the creative aspects of the industry. So making sure that that the correct people are identified as the owners is critical.
Paul, your question is like, hey, I think it's spot on, which is like, you got to be able to tell people who are not traditionally involved in the industry or now are the owners, and you still have to maintain making sure that the creators get paid, right, that are behind that transaction or agreement or whatever. So the layers are actually increasing, not just the speed in which these transactions are happening. So we've certainly looked at that. We've actually prototyped a catalog transfer workflow process as part of one of our projects.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
So if you have really good data, well, if anyone who's ever done a deal knows that you actually go through a process with the buyer and the seller, and you kind of look at your metadata, you make sure the agreements are clean and so on. In a financial deal, you might use a data room to actually do that. Right. So imagine a data room construct between buyer and seller of a catalog that allows them to share good ownership information that one side already has, presumably, with the other, and then enabling that data once the transaction happens to be communicated to, let's say, all 300 streaming services, so that they now know that, Paul, you're the owner, not me. So pay Paul, so we've actually prototyped some workflow tools like that on top of our data engine, which we feel is the logical sort of extension of some of the services that we're building today.
We're coming up on time. We do have an audience poll that I wanted to put up so that folks out there can weigh in on some of what we've been talking about. There are also some questions that people have posted, and I want to make sure. Can everybody see the poll? Peter, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. We can't answer it, but other folks can answer it. And while they're filling that out, let's look at a couple of the questions that people have posted. Miriam Koch, not sure the exact pronunciation there. Well, this you were just referring to this, Ken. How does an acquisitive rights company like Hypnosis affect Verifi's answer to the question of who owns the rights to a song? I think we sort of just covered that. Yep.
There's no reason why they couldn't actually be viewed as either rightful owner or data contributor in our ecosystem. They are not a client today. We do not have any of these sort of external funds as clients today, but we know it makes sense, and we do hope to sort of engage with them over time.
In fact, that would seem like a prime opportunity for Verifi as a in terms of potential clients, because of the need for accurate data that we were just discussing.
We agree.
Eric Mendelson, Ken, does your partnership with FUGA include the metadata from FUGA writers, artists only, or does it include co-writers, artists who aren't signed to FUGA and or Downtown? And Peter, if you want to weigh in on that as well.
Do you want to start, Peter, and then I'll try to...
Yeah, sure. It includes the data of label clients. In our case, it includes the data of our labels that they are delivering into the Verifi data engine. So the data, it's about, in our case, it's about the master rights, which are owned by the labels, and it could be any associated data that they are attributing to that master rights. In our case, we do not work directly with the artist because we are a business-to-business company, but that could be the case if it were an artist as well directly, but it would be on the master side. And the whole idea is indeed that this would give them the possibility, with permission, to enrich a data set with the associated, let's say, publisher rights or copyrights. In the end, to create a full, all-encompassing rights data set so that all rights holders can, let's say, that we all know that the right data is associated with the right work, and therefore ultimately everyone gets paid out as transparent as possible. So we are one part of Verifi's ecosystem, if you will.
And we're, I think just to expand on that, the service that you got a quick overview of is the initial service that we launched for FUGA's clients, and we are on an ongoing basis going to continue to build both features and additional things, like the ability for an independent label to add things on their own on the Verifi side that then gets propagated through our data network. Yeah, think of it as version 1, right, Peter? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but yeah, we're going to keep building on this thing.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how is FUGA and/or Downtown going to be involved in helping to expand adoption of the Verifi platform, or is that all Ken's problem?
No, absolutely not. We are definitely, we are very much invested in this project. We have it we have Verifi as a partner, as a delivery partner in our platform. So we encourage our labels to take part in this project, and indeed it's the first phase by sending their data to Verifi's data engine. There's no immediate money going to be made. That's clear because we are still in the process of adding a few parts to the project. But what we can already offer them is to make sure that they have stamped their data, so to speak, in the blockchain, that it's part of the data engine of Verifi, and that they can actually, through a retriever, check any associated data to the work. And we also make sure that this identifier is delivered into the DSPs. And obviously, a big future part is to get the DSPs to participate in this exciting project.
Question from Nick Blake. How do you feel about the DDEX and Sound Exchange's MDX database platform?
Sure.
Comment on or not?
Yeah, they're actually in our mind they're two different things. So we actually one of the things which I glossed over is a big part of making this all work is actually orchestrating disparate data standards that the various, if you will, verticals within recorded music use. So the two examples would be DDEX for master recordings oriented organizations like labels, and CWR for publishers and PROs, let's say. Obviously, in order to create a systematic linkage across creators, works, and recordings, I sometimes call it, you actually have to bust up the atomic unit and extract information from those
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds like alchemy. It's not so bad, but rigorously ensure that you can actually associate various elements that are embedded in a particular format, like those two, and kind of essentially connect them, in a better way than inherent in those formats they would be allowed to do. So we have actually a pretty sophisticated data model, as well as data ingestion and extraction process. The ingestion and data model are pretty, we've been around for a while, so we've been working on that for a long time.
And this is how and why you're not trying to force people into a new standard. You are working with the standards that are out there and extracting ways or elements from them to connect them.
Correct, and then deliver them back in those formats too, so that if you're a publisher,
Back in the original format.
yeah, because there's internal systems in these larger organizations that we're not intending to replace. We're trying to augment or enhance the ability for this data set to move quickly. So I think it's really important to understand philosophically that in order to accomplish that balance, we need to actually, like I said, bust up the atom, connect these things in ways that historically haven't had to be connected, I guess, do it systematically, and then deliver it back. So DDEX is actually a principal standard that we work with. It would be my answer. MDX, we know well. They are absolutely an interesting, sort of connection point between works and recordings. Sound Exchange has been working on that for a number of years. It's available now. We have not spoken to them formally about working together, but we have no problems working with any of these organizations that have, data sets that make sense to actually deliver. We have this concept of a data contributor within our ecosystem. Ray being the best example of that, which is they essentially send data in. They're not authoritative, so they're not coming from the ownership, if you will, or representatives, but they certainly can be, both a normalization filter as well as a fill in the gaps kind of service, right? And these linkages are very difficult, as everybody knows, and the more the merrier in terms of people thinking through things like that.
So Tally, I'm going to leave it at Tally because I'll butcher that name, and I don't want to do that. So who takes legal responsibility for the data?
Great question. There's many ways to interpret that question, so I'll just take one crack at it. We believe that working directly with owners of the data and representatives, in the case of PROs, if you think about what they do broadly, is extremely important. So this is not an open-ended system, right? And in fact, the stuff that gets registered on the chain, at least for the moment, is stuff for which we have high degree of consensus around that the data is accurate, which doesn't in and of itself, sort of change the legal question so much, but there is some stuff there. The other thing that we haven't talked about is we have a proprietary scoring engine, which is related, which essentially is giving you kind of like a FICO score for metadata. If you want to think of it that way, if everyone knows what a FICO score is. Basically, how good is this data? Is it coming from authoritative sources? How accurate is it? Is it filled in? Are there lots of blanks? Is the user trying to spam the system with bad data? All those things incorporated into a singular, not a singular score, but a set of scores that you can use to make value judgments as a user in our community. So I think that's actually important to kind of weed out the weaklings. We've prototyped that for one of our projects. It is not implemented yet. We hope to implement that next year.
We're just about out of time here, but I did want to share the poll results with folks. First question was just to get a sense of the room. We have a lot of others out there. Not as many.
Fans of Pieter.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what to make of that result right there. Second question though, what do you think it would be the fairest and most effective way to manage music rights data? And it's pretty good news for Verifi. The plurality response was an open distributed system, such as you have built. So that's news. Either that, or you're just a very good salesman, and you've convinced everybody here.
We stacked the house.
You stacked the house. And who do you think would benefit the most from having more accurate and up-to-date music rights data? And overwhelmingly, the choice was everybody in the industry. So that makes sense, I guess. So we're right up on time. Peter and Ken, thank you very much. I'm sorry if we didn't get to everybody's questions. But Ken, how could people reach you if they wanted to follow up? Ken@verifi.media is my email address, and our website has a bunch of stuff if you want to learn more. And Pieter?
It's Pieter@fuga.com, Pieter with IE.
Yes, Pieter spelled like
You can see
a
it on the
Dutchman.
screen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks very much. Ned, who do we have up tomorrow for?
Tomorrow for our Business of Music Day, we have John Velasopoulos. John is the new head of music at Roblox. It'll be a very interesting conversation. Join us tomorrow at noon Pacific. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Pieter. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.